Hi everyone. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about how to calculate probabilities from two-way tables. At this time, feel free to pause the video and jot down the example as well as this two-way table. We're pretty much going to be using this same example throughout the entire video, so there's not much to write down. And then once you've done so, hit resume for the explanation. So here's an example. Miss Mangine surveys teachers and students at Newfield High School to determine their streaming preference. The data is given below. So here's the two-way table. Let's just analyze it. It looks like 530 students prefer Netflix, 100 teachers prefer Netflix, 620 students prefer Disney Plus, and 50 teachers prefer Disney Plus. So given a two-way table, I'm going to ask you to calculate certain probabilities. So the first example says, what is the exact probability that a person selected at random prefers Netflix over Disney Plus? So the key word here is exact probability. And if you remember, exact probability means express your answer as a reduced fraction. So that's the first thing we want to write down. Now, in order to answer this question, in order to determine a randomly selected person if they prefer Netflix, we need our totals. So if you notice in this two-way table, there's no total to the right and there's no total below. So sometimes they're going to give you a two-way table that's incomplete. So it's going to be your responsibility to complete it. So we've got total down here and total here. So if we add up the number of students that prefer Netflix and Disney Plus, we will get the total number of students. So 530 plus 620 gives us 1,150 students. Then if we add up the teachers, 100 plus 50, that gives me 150. And then if we add up the total number of people that prefer Netflix, 530 plus 100 is 630. And if we add up the people that prefer Disney Plus, 620 plus 500, plus 50 is 670. And then we need this grand total in the corner. It's just found by adding these two or these two. It will be the same thing. So 630 plus 700 or 1150 plus 150 will add up to a grand total of 1300. So this number here in the corner, this 1300, is your grand total. So you can write that down in the corner, grand total. So what we just found was the total number of people that were surveyed, 1300. So now that we have all the missing pieces, I think now we can answer the question. So it says, what is the exact probability that a person selected at random prefers Netflix over Disney Plus? So what you want to do is you want to look at your preferring Netflix column. So out of the people that prefer Netflix, 630 people prefer it. So what we're going to do is just say 630 over the grand total of 1,300. And then, like I said, exact probability means that we have to reduce that fraction. So go ahead and pause the video, reduce the fraction in your calculator, and then hit resume when you're ready for the answer. Okay, so you should have gotten 63 over 130. That is your exact probability that a person selected at random prefers Netflix over Disney Plus. Okay, let's try another example. Notice I've just filled in the two-way table for you so we have it to reference. What is the probability to the nearest hundredth, so now I want my probability as a decimal, that a person selected at random is a teacher? Okay, well, let's find out our total number of teachers. Well, here is our total number of teachers, and here is our grand total. So to answer this, all we need to do is put the total number of teachers, 150, over the total number of people surveyed, 1,300. Now, I asked this question to be rounded to the nearest hundredth. So take a couple minutes, pause the video, type that fraction into the calculator, and round your decimal to the nearest hundredth, which is 2 decimal places. And then hit resume when you're ready for the answer. Okay, I got approximately 0.11538 going on forever. 2 decimal places rounds this one. Well, we look at the 5, so we're going to round that up to 0.12. So 12% or 0.12 is the probability that a person selected at random will be a teacher. Okay, let's look at example number 3. What is the probability, now this time, to the nearest hundredth of a percent that a teacher selected at random prefers Disney Plus? So this one's a little bit tricky because they're not saying from the grand total. They're saying what is the probability that a teacher selected at random prefers Disney Plus? So what this is doing, this is kind of what's called a given probability situation. I'm giving you that I'm asking you to just talk about the teachers. So we're only speaking about 150 people as opposed to this 1,300. And it tells us that because they're specifically saying that a teacher selected at random prefers Disney Plus. So of the teachers, how many of them prefer Disney Plus? Well, 50 teachers prefer Disney Plus. So the total now is 50 out of 150. In order for you to use this grand total, they would have had to say, what is the probability that a randomly selected person? So by them telling you teacher, you're breaking down your grand total. Instead of 1,300, you're breaking it into a smaller piece of 150. So let's round our answer to the nearest hundredth of a percent. So go ahead, put the 50 out of 150 in the calculator and get a decimal, and then hit resume when you're ready to do so. Okay, so I got 0.333 repeated. So that's the decimal. Now to change it to a percent, I move the decimal place 2 places to the right. So 33.333 repeated percent now. But notice I'm saying round this to the nearest hundredth of a percent. So I'm taking this percent, 33.3, and rounding it 2 places. So 33.33%. All right, last example. What is the exact probability that a student selected at random prefers Netflix? All right, so this is kind of similar to the last one. They're saying that a student is selected at random. So again, they're narrowing down your grand total. So instead of 1,300, we want to do it out of the 1,150 because that's the total number of students. So what's the probability that a student selected at random prefers Netflix? So who prefers Netflix that are students? Well, 530. So my total, 530, that prefer Netflix out of my grand total this time of 1,150. So go ahead, type in 530 divided by 1,150 in the calculator and reduce that fraction because I'm asking for an exact probability. Pause the video and then hit resume when you're ready for the answer. All right, so the answer should be 53.115. And that is your exact probability. All right, that's it for today. If you have any questions, jot them down and make sure you ask us in class tomorrow. Okay, have a good night.